Yes. Why not first? Because there are going to be a lot of questions. You come and say.
Okay, I'll bring it over.
Okay.
So you want to come up? Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. Good to see you all here. I want you to know this is a distinguished man, so humble, but a very distinguished man. And I've known Del Riley for quite a few years, and I thoroughly admire the man. Although many of us haven't met before, I'm from Millbrook Bar, born there. My father comes from down Bear River Way. My mother was born along the Miramichi River somewhere, and we grew up in a traditional way. If we didn't hunt a rabbit, shoot a partridge and a few ducks, we never ate, and that's how simple it was. There was no luxury. We were never on good standings with chief and council. All through my life, I have never been on good standings with Indian Act chief and council, although I have relatives who are, and we get along very well. But I also want to say that where I admired Del Riley, when I saw the flyer that's floating around to come here to meet with him, I was just totally impressed, you know, chairing an international forum. Although I knew he was the president of the National Indian Brotherhood, in fact, the last one. I knew him during that time. I met him a few times. And I just would like to tell you where Del Riley left off and we picked up. I'd like you to know that Del Riley started the constitutional process, and in October of 1978, Pierre Trudeau and the English premiers of Canada started what they call the reenactment of the British North America Act. That was in October. Del Riley probably can tell you better than I ever could, but the fact is that Pierre Trudeau and the premiers were giving Indian chiefs, even the Indian Act chiefs, they wanted to sit at the constitutional table. They said, yes, you can sit here as observers, look and listen in silence and nothing more. So I think Del Riley, again, could probably tell you better than I ever could. On July 2nd, 1979, about 250 delegates of the National Indian Brotherhood went to Europe, and of course I'm not sure if England is Europe, but I'll say, and to England as well. There they protested Her Majesty at the Buckingham Palace. They protested Margaret Thatcher, who was then the Conservative Premier of England, the House of Lords, opposition in Parliament. Many went to the Russell Tribunal, some went to the International Court in The Hague, and that's how we got a seat at the Constitutional Conference table. That's how we did it. It wasn't given to us by the goodwill of Pierre Trudeau, John Cratchit, or anyone else in Ottawa. They fought for it. I wasn't there then, but I want you to know that I did hold the title of National Chief of the Atlantic Region. And again, my praise go to Del Riley. He saw fit that the National Indian Brotherhood outgrew itself. It was established in February of 1968, and of course, I really believe that Del Riley put a commission in place, chaired by Charlie Wood, who was the chief of Alberta, and to restructure the National Indian Brotherhood into what is now the Assembly of First Nations. Under the National Indian Brotherhood, there was only 37 voting members, whereas I'm sure he saw some credit in this to be having so that 633 votes would be made in the next election. And I was there in Huntington, British Columbia when David Haneke was elected. That's where I was elected. There was two candidates from the Atlantic region. Chief Dennis Nicholas was one of them. Dennis Nicholas was also the vice president of the National Indian Brotherhood from 1976 to 1980. So we inherited the constitutional process, and I just want to, I mean, I shouldn't talk too long, although I'd like to say a few more things, but anyway, there's some things that seriously troubled me deeply. The visit to the Vatican just last week, I am extremely troubled by that. And I'm a little bit of ashamed to Roseanne Archibald, although I like her very much, and I went on my way down to Soniaville to meet her. Phil Fontaine was not the proper person to do what he did. She is. Among many other things, Phil Fontaine was the Regional Director of Indian Affairs for 9 years. That's bad. That's like being a Nazi and saying, well, I'm a good Jew now. Well, he wasn't that bad, you know? Yeah, that's what he did. Good liberal too. Anyway, I'm not going to tell you any names, but I'm going to tell you. One female friend told me word had been going around at AFN office when Phil Fontaine finished his last term. $30 million in his bank account. $30 million. When he got elected his last time around, he told Stephen Harper, I need $19 million to renovate my office. That building he lives in is not his. That office is not his. He's renting it. Yet he needed $19 million to renovate it. You know, these are serious things. I'm not going to tell you I went to Strippenagony. I didn't. But I was sent to a Catholic school. Franciscan brothers, they were going to teach us how to be a priest. We prayed, we prayed, we prayed, we prayed. 1,920 prayers a year. That's not counting going to church and confessions and all that kind of stuff, you know? I thought to myself, never in my lifetime will I ever conform to anything like that ever again. And I'm probably the best or the worst nonconformist that ever lived. I got elected nationally through rules that he put in place. I represented you, especially the Micmac and other women that are sitting here, that when we got there, Pierre Trudeau did not have women on the agenda. You were not to be included, to be recognized as human beings with rights. We told Pierre Trudeau, he was the chair, I was sitting at this corner, we told Pierre Trudeau, Prime Minister, Mr. Trudeau, you're talking about creating a just society? How just a society can you create when you do not include women on your agenda to be recognized as human beings? Our mothers, our grandmothers, our aunties, sisters, and all of the female persons. And I can honestly tell you that when these men went to the Vatican last week, we all need to be outraged by that. I'm going to tell you sincerely, the Pope is, the Vatican is a sovereign. He is not only sovereign once, he's sovereign twice. Sovereign over the Vatican and sovereign to God, Jesus Christ. I'm going to tell you even something worse than that. During the Second World War, Mussolini and Pope Pius XI made a deal. Mussolini gave him a truckload of gold, and he would make the Vatican sovereign, and all the Catholics in the world would now become Nazis. My mother, a Micmac woman, had some very serious losses to friends and relatives during the Second World War at the landing of Sicily, if you can imagine that. So, but these are the things that when the Pope goes over there, oh, some priest did that, yeah. Bullshit. Pardon my expression.
Thank you.
I wasn't going to fight him for the mic. Okay, I know there's going to be a lot of questions. You know, rather than me go on, I can go on for 2 hours, guys, but there's a lot more I'd like to teach you, but there's not enough time. So I'm going to open it up to questions from anyone at any time. I'm a historian as well, so.
I want to know who directly is the one that authorizes our Indigenous brothers and sisters to be charged for the RCMP to go in and confiscate their stuff, their legal stuff. Why is it? Why do they have to face court? And why are our people being charged to open up these cannabis shops if we are a sovereign country and our land has never seen it? Why is that?
Well, that's a good question, and we've, Chief Dell and I have talked and sat with the Ontario Provincial Police and the Anishinaabeg Police Services, And each of the, and the RC, we haven't talked to the RCMP, but I've done a freedom of information request on their files. And each of the police services have a different perspective. So the APS, it's up to the individual officer. Any individual officer can come by.
I'm not talking about the officer, I'm talking about who gives the direction on the First Nations to go ahead to give those RCMP the authorization to do that.
It's usually chief and council, or more specifically, it's usually, from what I've seen, it's chiefs. It's not the council's having a democratic decision about it. It's
So
a back door.
It's one person that gives that authorization to go ahead and to authorize that.
Yes, but the different police forces like the RCMP and the OPP, for example, have official policy positions that they recognize they call it they recognize the Aboriginal right, or they recognize the sovereignty issues, as they call it, that Indigenous people have a right to open stores. So if they are told by chief and council not to raid, then it's their policy, the OPP and the RCMP, not to. Conversely, if they are raiding, it would be because they are the ones that are instigating it.
Go ahead.
It's gonna be a while. My name's Rhonda Martin. I'm from Six Nations. I hang out with these two guys. And in answer to your question, so what happens on Six Nations, right, is the only example I can give you because that's where I live. So, Six Nations police, who are our tribal police, right, say they don't follow under provincial ruling, but they'll give you a ticket and you go to court, right? They'll give you, if you're speeding, they'll give you a ticket. So there's the confusion, right? So they were originally allowed to be who they were originally supposed to be just peacekeepers. The people in the community said, we need somebody to keep us safe. So we went from Indian police to RCMP to tribal police, right? So now you've got raids were happening on our territory in like the dispensaries that just started up. One incident, they broke into a young men's building. There was, I believe, 4, and the police brutalized them. Like, busted the doors down, held them down. One young man had a trachea in his neck, and had they put any pressure on him, they probably would have killed him and suffocated him. So we started stepping up in our community, but mainly as women, right? So we started, showing up at all these different things that were happening in our community. What's going on? Why are you doing the things that you're doing? So we asked the questions, who's directing you to do this? When now, Ontario says it's legal. So I was in a confrontation with one of the biggest police officers we have, and one of the most bulliest ones. And they raided a store. We showed up, and I'm asking the people who own the store, why are you standing here? Your building's there, on your property. Why are you standing here? And she said, well, they told us to get off the property. I said, really? That's what they told you? Nobody could go on the property? So I walked over to them, and I said to the big bully, the officer, and I said, what are you doing? What do you mean, what am I doing? I said, yeah, what are you doing? Why are you hurting your own people? You're gonna come here, you're gonna bust down the doors, you've already done it, you're sending us into a courtroom, and the judge is gonna turn around and say, well, so why are you here? Well, Six Nations just charged us for, having a dispensary. And then the judge turns around and laughs and said, go home. Right? So we're like, so where is the direction coming from? Right? So Timmy, why are you doing this to us? When you know that well, we're gonna go to court and just turn around, and so we've lost a day of work, we've had put money that, taken out of our maybe our grocery fund to pay for a lawyer, whatever. It still hurts us. So we are doing exactly what the government wants us to do, hurt each other, right? So if you guys aren't sick of it, I know we are. I live in a community that has 2 councils. You know, we have our chiefs and clanmen, we have our hereditary system, and we have an elected system. That elected system's been sitting on our territory for almost 100 years. To 2024, it'll be 100 years. So when we started stepping up, like I said, if the police are taking direction from who, don't want to tell us who, band council saying, we're not sending them there. Okay, you know what, it don't matter. You ain't gonna do it anymore, right? So we had enough of the brutality. They busted into a home that had children in there, and they traumatized these children. These aren't, like I said, these aren't OPP. These aren't Ontario Provincial Police. These are 6 Nations residents who are police officers, right? So we just had enough of the complaints. So we started getting women together and we started asking the men, we're gonna go to the police station, we're gonna break down the door. And they're like, whoa, what? Well, basically that's what we're busting our own door. That invisible door that we keep letting them put us through, we're gonna bust that door down and we're going over to the police station. We're gonna have a word with these guys. Well, it didn't work out like I planned. We all got fighting. And it took a police officer to jump up, grab a motorcycle, a young man's motorcycle, he was gonna toss it. Well, you know what, that young man flew on him. And then the brother jumped in, then the father jumped in. And then you got people over there, and I was like, the women were trying to stop things, right? So anyway, I finally had a word with the chief of police, we got things calmed down, and I said, you know, all you need to do is walk up to the goddamn dispensary that you know is on 6th line, 5th line, wherever it is, and knock on their door and say, we're coming in, right? So if these dispensaries aren't selling drugs, aren't selling harmful things to children, then, you know, why shouldn't we be allowed to have our own economy somehow, some way? You know, we've been suppressed too long, and as long as they're not selling drugs and they're abiding by community rules, right? We have a People's Coalition. We started that long before the elected system got their cannabis law regulated. It's been running now since that conversation we had with the 6 Nations police. And I think it's almost a year now that happened. And they've never raided anybody. They haven't had to raid any dispensaries. Because we carry a sticker that says 6 Nations People's Cannabis Coalition. So they've got, I'm gonna say 23, maybe 30, I don't know. I lose count, I don't count them, but there's quite a bit who are all under this coalition who has promised to give back to the community. They have a volunteer that goes around and collects, I think it's like $200 or $500 a month. They put it into a fund, and it's been used now for, to help girls with jerseys. They put a roof on for an elder. So they're giving way back, like back into the community where band council takes you how long, right, to get a new roof, or, you know, I mean, they gotta go through all the work too. So it's not just the people sitting in the band council sometimes, right?
That don't, there's no questions asked, they don't want this big long, or big long write-up of what you need, they just go in and they do it. There's no problem, and they don't expect you to, you know, say, oh, thank you, write it on Facebook, how great they are, whatever. They do it, that's honorable.
When 6 Nations elected council first thought they could come up with a plan, they had a community meeting, and there was a lot of people that showed up. They said, okay, Canada's regulated, so how do we get involved? They wanted 12% of what you made that month. And then you go and put it in their account. And they will fix the roads, they'll do this. And I just stood up and I said, you know what, you already get money to fix our roads, and they're still not fixed, so blow it out your, like, who you think you're lying to? We live here, honey. We see what's getting done and what's not getting done, right? So, and I said the 12%, at that time, Tyne was putting in, I think they said 8% into their neighbor helping neighbor fund, something like that, right? So I said to the community, people in the community at that meeting, and I said, hey, wasn't yesterday a payday, like for bank council? And they said, yeah, and I said, how about you guys run to the bank and withdraw 12% of that paycheck and hand it out? And they're like, I go, yeah, exactly. But you want me to, what do? Seed it, grow it, plant it, do all the hard work, and then I get the first good pay, and I'm gonna run over to bank house and say, here's my 12%? Hell no. When you won't even fix my grandma's house, you're making it hard to get running water, so no. So it's basic common sense of working together for the benefit of the people, because, I'm not totally against band council. Hell, I was nominated once, and I accepted the nomination because, like my friend here, I wanted to make that difference in my community as well. So the year I ran, they brought in online voting, and they went to great lengths to make sure that the 5 of us didn't get in. Because I was going in to either better it or dismantle it. That was mine, because we do not need a Canadian government, a US government, or any other government telling us how to govern ourselves if we want to govern ourselves accordingly. We need to all get on the same page, nation to nation, and work together on this. That's the only way. It's not just about this community or that clan. Oh, because I can talk. But anyway, I'm going to be coming out probably a little more often with Del and whatnot. And but we can talk on Facebook. Right now, I'm involved in a group with 93 women. So we're looking for same like-minded women who will step up to the plate and say enough is enough right now. And that's all. We have women all across. So I don't think anybody from here is in there, but if anybody wants to, let's meet up and talk. And I'm Rhonda Martin, just simple Rhonda, AKA Big Mama, but that's cool. So I'll let you talk again to Deb. I hope that answered all your questions.
Okay, any more questions? I didn't hear that.
Bob Wilson, Billy and Raybold's father.
Oh, Bill Wilson you're talking about, yeah. Yeah, he's an old friend of mine, and, yeah. I always beat him in a game of golf. No, his daughter, I knew her from the time she was a little girl, so she knows me. The one that got to be cabinet minister, Julianne Raybould. Yeah, I don't think he's in the greatest health right now. I know he had one bad leg, so he couldn't get around very well.
Does she have? Does God have any input?
I think in her own way. I know she's written a book, and she's doing things out there, but I haven't kept up with it, so I can't really answer your question. Oh, yeah.
My question is for whoever's starting this would be, what is some kind of system to protect parents from legal failures in the US?
Yeah,
Medicine
yeah.
would be detected under like the same kind of medicine as like sage or sweetgrass or something?
I don't know, I hadn't heard of them using that kind of tactic, but probably your best bet is to, like they're doing across the country now, just take over all of the CAS kinds of,
Our chief gets paid from Newfoundland here, so I don't think he would want to give that up.
well, I mean, it's not up to him, it's up to the people. You wanna do it, you'll get it done, so. Yeah, organize, as much support as you can, put it down, what you wanna do, and you've got a lot of examples all over Canada of, what they've done. So get those, copies and say, hey, we like this, we like all of that, but not that, so, you know, do your own thing. Don't worry, I'm an organizer, so.
I have a question, I was, buying lobster, I had 96 crates of lobster last year, and they took my truck and all the lobster, and they never charged me with nothing. They said, I tried to call a lawyer, they said, you're not charged with nothing, so you can't do nothing for you.
Oh, yeah, okay, but you could sue them. Do you wanna sue them? Yeah, it's a good case, because you got a lot of time, and you've lost a lot. And, they're breaching their fiduciary. And anytime you get cases like this, you make sure you charge them with breach of fiduciary. Because, see, breach of fiduciary. See, it's not only, your chief and counsel, they have a fiduciary obligation. And, it's because they have to do work for, that's approved up a little higher in Indian Affairs. But they now have that fiduciary, so you have to go after both of them, so. And, eventually, Indian Affairs has to pay.
So I would sue DFO and the unit.
Oh, yeah, do both, yeah. Well, the judge will decide that. But, we've got one case going ahead now, similar circumstances. You know.
Yeah, talked about, my brother-in-law, Stan Johnson, I don't know if you remember Stan, but anyway, he fought the courts for years when it came to the cigarettes. And he was always being raided, they were always taking his stuff. He ended up going to prison, he ended up losing all his money, he ended up losing his home after he died because his wife refused to go bankrupt, she paid all his bills. But anyway, I remember one point they took a bunch of his products, which is hundreds of thousands of dollars. And he went to court, he won the case. The court said the province had to pay him back his money. He never got a penny. The judge stayed that decision.
Then you needed it taken up to a higher level.
He did, never went anywhere. But anyway, he lost that money. And he ended up dying.
And that's not the only, there's similar situations all over.
Yeah,
I went to court for somebody
yeah.
one time over cigarettes. I had to go 26 times. And, well, at that point, we just said, hell, let's see if we can get them up to 50. So we were toying with them then, and then in the end, they walked away. Because they knew we were using Section 35 constitutional arguments.
So section 35 is covering you on cigarettes in court?
Yeah, we had cigarettes long before. Well, it never got to court because the province wouldn't, after 26 times coming to court, they just walked and never come back. So does that mean I won the case? I think it does.
Would
you, we spoke a bit about what took place at the Vatican last week with the Pope. Could you make sure that, see, these are the same Indian Act people who refuse to acknowledge that they're even implicated in a small way, and it was a big way, because if you look at the Indian Act, sections 140, 123, it's all on education. Coming toward the latter end of it, it says the RCMP, the chief, and whatever constable he appoints has the authority to move our kids away, our kids away, whatever, you know? So now I'm asking you, sir, could you be sure that traditional people be allowed a seat at that table? And I also want to impress on you, sir, that you make sure that that Pope, when he speaks, and an apology is totally unacceptable, totally. He's a sovereign. That was not a mistake what they did, and he has to be brought to a trial like Adolf Hitler was in Nuremberg in 1946, 47, 48, 49. Nothing less. And the government of Canada is implicated in that too as well.
Hey, I have every reason in the world to agree with you.
Thank you.
And, well, hey, I'm back in the fight. I can't do any more than that, okay?
Traditional people, not just the AFN, not the Indian organizations, they're invoked under provincial
Yeah.
law. Nova Scotia Union of Nova Scotia Indians is invoked under the Nova Scotia Municipalities Act. Union of New Brunswick Indians and Section 18 of the New Brunswick Companies Act, they're not even Indian. True.
There's so many gray areas that the Indian Act has created. So much of misunderstanding about our rights yet. And that means there's a hell of a lot of work out there. You have to educate everyone so that
Remember, we're not Indian,
if you
right?
if you get educated on this, of course you can make a hell of a lot better decisions, and you know what's going wrong with the system that's there, and it is wrong.
Sure.
I don't want to keep my mouth off this. I want to be able to book, so I want to keep Nice to meet you. I'm Karina Smiley, and welcome. I'm really pleased that you guys were all able to come here. Some of you, most of you know me, but I work in community here in Millbrook, and I cover most of the communities as a victim support worker throughout the province. My main jurisdiction is Shuby, Millbrook, Pictou, Antigonish, and up to Amherst, but I do go throughout the province when I'm needed. And as a victim support worker, I look at all sorts of crimes and harms that are done to our people. And I see a lot of intergenerational trauma. And when I look at, abuse in itself and domestic violence, and I'm teaching the people that I work with, to decolonize, and teaching them that this is not our way. This is the way of the colonizer. And I get those same mixed, angry emotions that some of you were talking about when it comes to the apology. And the reason for that is when I look at it through different lenses, I see our people who are going back to their abuser is no different than returning to your abusive husband or your abusive wife. So we have to be patient with our people, whether they're elders or they have intergenerational trauma of being loyal to this system. And remember, it's not God that we're against or opposing, Creator. We're opposing
the abusive relationship. And so it's gonna be our responsibility to have, kind of hold space and have compassion for our Catholic brothers and sisters. Not that we're condoning it, but we're hoping that we are going to decolonize from this. When I see people standing up, the younger generation, they're decolonizing. They don't want this. But we see a group of people who are in the middle of that. Those are the survivors, and sometimes some of their children. So when Stockholm Syndrome, if you haven't heard of it, it's real, and it's happening to our people across the country. Everybody who's participating in that. And the best thing that I could suggest is respecting our elders, that them having that apology was really important to them. You know? And respecting and understanding that that's what they needed as a part of their healing process. But our role is to teach those generations going forward that that relationship does not serve us. It never did. And getting back to our ways of knowing and being is where our healing lies. And all the people that I've worked with throughout the last 7.5 years, it's when our people get out and talk to the elders, practice their traditional ways, go to their sweat lodge ceremonies, do their tobacco ties, do their smudging. That's where the healing is. Because when you're taught as a child that you can punch your brother and then go behind the little curtain and confess your sins and it's okay, you become like one of Pavlov's dogs. You're classically conditioned to be an abuser. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, question over there.
Well, Darcy, nodding and kissing, go back to chat. All of a sudden, in that dollars is sage, exhibit negative, which is kitchen away. Get on move, I want to talk to you from inside my heart. You know, we quickly turned this over to the Pope. Because these are the things that plagued us for so long and has been such an enormous part of our poverty. And poor people make poor decisions. And our people did go over there in poverty to see the wealth of the Vatican with all our resources and everything that they've accumulated, while we have living in townships on Indian reservations where we don't own the houses that we live in. I know they went over there and they were angry, and they have every reason to be angry. You know, to a man that talks to himself, asking for forgiveness, asking for an apology, or a crazy man that talks to himself. What's that, God? What's that you say? Kill them and take their property? Okay. If they reject the baptism, right? Yeah, kill them. Kill them all and take their property. That's a crazy man. You know? Well, if we're not, we obviously, I wouldn't want to be the Pope. Not well liked nowadays. But getting back to the purpose of our discussions, the treaty trumps everything. 1752, 1760, 61 treaties trumped the Royal Proclamation. The Royal Proclamation inserted our treaties in the Royal Proclamation. They reaffirmed our treaties. And our territory and our lands and our treaties went right down to the South Americas. Not to Nova Scotia and New Brunswick. Those were non-existent at that time. And all the lands west of that was the Indian Nations land. It's all territorial Indian Nations land. And we never sold our land, we never gave it away, and we never lost it in war. So the fact that we are on an Indian Act reservation, that's just a new piece of designated fence. Our territory is 200 kilometers off sea. We got people working in our territory right now out there in boats. In our territory. This whole territory, as far as you can see, until the language changes, is where our territory goes. That's what we respect. When our language changed, that's how far our territory goes. We had the wampum. The 1763 was a wampum. Nations going in two different directions, but not intertwining. Separate, independent of one another. We gave the British permission to run their own government, and we would run ours. Somehow or another, over the years, that crisscrossed and changed. But the Indian Act is a very, very small part of our nationhood and of our authority and of our generation. The Indian Act power is a 2-year term in most cases. That's a short term for anybody to be making any decisions in respect to the Indian Act. First of all, the land is treaty, not Indian Act land. Nova Scotia's treaty land, Maliseet land, Passamaquoddy. These are the things we gotta realize, and we gotta think that way. I drove all through my territory today, and I feel very good, and I'll drive all the way home through my territory tonight, feeling very good about it. All right? I'm not home on Indian land, reserve land. I'm home here. As far as I can see, as far as I can think of what I own, is what I own. And that's where we all need to be thinking about.
I agree with you 100%.
Thank you. And that's where we need to be, and that's what the Supreme Court recognizes. The Supreme Court didn't recognize the Indian Act. The Supreme Court recognized the Treaty of 1752. 1761 didn't recognize Chief and Council of the Indian Act. So we wear many hats here. We're traditional, we're Catholics, right? I'm not. Just to be clear. I'm a rock, I'm a tree. I'm fertilizer. That's what I want to be, okay? So let's think about what our brothers and sisters are doing by opening their businesses, whatever it may be, whether it's fishing, right? Whether it's gasoline, whether it's resource management, whether it's tobacco, marijuana, whatever you want to call, whatever your business is, it's treaty business. It's territorial business. It's an inherent right. Something that you were born with. Nobody could give you that right. You were born with that authority, and your babies are being born with the same authority today. That's powerful. RCMP member works a 40-hour week. His power's gone. Right? Retires, he's gone. Right? You were born with your authority, born with your responsibility forever. And you inject that into your family and into your children. So remember that, okay? We'll allow you.
Very good. Hey, there is somebody in here who thinks like me. No, there's a lot of work to do. And I think even if we're just on the cutting edge of it, which I think in a lot of cases we are, we know there's a big road ahead. But what's so important, I think, is that we begin to understand exactly where we're at. Learn about Chief and Council, learn about the Indian Act, learn about your history. That was one thing I wanted to do tonight, was to give you a rundown on history. But of course, time doesn't provide it, but another time. And another time, when I come back, what I would like to do is do a session on understanding Aboriginal treaty rights, especially for all of your students. I did it out west one time, and I had the students the first day. Second day, I had all of their parents. Ed would get it back. But you know, and it's useful. It's helpful, because kids got to know these are going to be leaders. They got to know what their rights are.
My company, I'm from Cannabis First Nation.
Yeah.
In Cape Breton.
Mm-hmm.
And my company was charged under the Cannabis Act, Section 20, subsection 1B,
Yeah.
operating a cannabis storefront without authorization. The charge was originally with my company.
Yeah.
But we didn't re-register the company, so the charge went to me as an individual. And when we were at the court in Eskasoni, the judge said that she had more present issues to deal with than to deal with this. So I was sent to Sydney Provincial Court, and the provincial court kind of said, you know what, I don't know why you're even here. You should be taken care of in your territory.
Yeah.
Now, my question is, what kind of documents do I need for my defense?
Oh, you just knew. Well, we're not going to get into too much of that right now, but I want you to get Tom's number, have a talk. It'll take some time, but we'll give you a wealth of information, and probably a lot of knowledge on what kind of strategy you can use. And but all in all, whatever they say, you make sure that you mention your defense's constitutional arguments.
Thank you.
Okay, I don't see any more hands up, but
I wanted to ask you a critically important question, and no one has spoken on it. When people do speak it, is that these are peace and friendship treaties. People are forgetting that treaties are signed between sovereigns.
right.
I'd like you to say a few words on that, please.
Okay, yeah, okay, well, in order to explain it, let me go back to the American Revolution and the War of 1812, 1814. My people were always in the war, always, and we fought under we fought with our own armies. Tecumseh was one of our leaders. One of my relatives, the chief, fought beside Tecumseh in the War of 1812. And Tecumseh, while he wasn't a chief any place, he was a fantastic leader that just did things. I'm trying to follow in his tracks today. I'm not elected either, but I can do a lot of damage out there just with my background. Well, anyway, Tecumseh's position was always that we own our own land. We are human beings, and well, I'm in history. Let me go back, and there was a big war we fought. It was called St. Clair's Defeat. This happened in down in the Ohio area, but I think St. Clair decided he was gonna kind of clean out the Indians there, so he set up a big military group, probably about, I think he had about 1,500 soldiers. And the crazy thing about back then was, you know, sometimes you never hear of these things in history. The armies used to travel with their ladies as well, you know, besides, of course, all of the food and grub they needed. And they couldn't travel too far each day. I think that back then, them soldiers might be lucky to cover about 8 miles a day, you know. So that, you know, I mean, they had a tough time catching anything, and usually they couldn't. But anyway, because he had decided he was going to attack the Indians, Tecumseh was ready for him. And one, I don't know, about second or third day, they decided they were going to camp. And well, we got so many soldiers, we're not even going to put up a stockade around us. Because usually this is what they done. They had to put a stockade because they were deathly afraid of Indians. And so they did. And they just, well, they partied and went to sleep. Our people never attacked at night. They always attacked at the first thing at dawn. Well, that was so we wouldn't make a mistake and get one of our own. And so we got the fight started. We killed over 800 of them anyway, the soldiers. I think we lost 25 warriors. And put them on the run, and we didn't chase them and kill the rest of them off. We let them go. But that was the way things went at the time. And as I said, Tecumseh's position and our position and the position of all the First Nations at the time, we own the land. We own it. And that's still a position. After War of 1812-14, it was us that established the borders. And in my mind, legally, under international law, I'd say that we were safe in our position and we never lost a war. They can't say they won it by war. And today, I think the courts are trying to find some legal language on how can we justify taking away all their land and resources and make it look like it's not racist. But, you know, that's a bit of a Supreme Court decision every time they make a decision. That's what they're doing.
So treaties are signed with the sovereign. Treaties are signed between sovereigns.
Yeah, they're signed between nations, yeah. Sovereign nations, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And my nation is recognized as Chippewa Nation in the treaty we made. So, you know, again, as I said, there was no, there weren't very many settlers around then, there were just a few. So we owned it all.
I think the gift for you, Riley, read this stuff, you're gonna astonish people more than you ever could imagine. There's no laws in this country.
Yeah. Okay, well, okay, any more questions out there? Okay. Okay, well, I can either repeat it or you can say it.
I'm Jessica. And my thing, what I'm trying to process, like I lived in Europe for 7 years and I've traveled a lot and I've gotten different perspectives in life, being born and raised in Millbrook and trying to understand my identity, my culture, and like, oh, makes me got emotional. It's that like even though I never was personally impacted by residential schools, but the thing is, it's passed like intergenerational through our people. And what I'm seeing like in our people is that there's a lack of self-confidence, and when you have people elected into our chief and council who don't have education on our treaty rights, or we never had the advantage of that being taught in school, like what our actual treaty rights are. So we had the gist of like, oh, residential schools, this happened, but nothing in depth that actually impact us. We can all empathize with each other without even having to go into depth of it, because we understand that impact, how it's affected us, even though we didn't choose it. So the thing is, like, when you have people in these authoritative positions in chief and council that don't have the education on that background, and you have that, like what Rhonda was saying, is that you have a lot of shops that are being rated and they're giving them to go. It is them that are saying, yes, go do that. It's because of lack of education or lack of trying to acknowledge or understand it, but it's our own people are colonizing each other and that wanting that authority over our own people. But when you have entrepreneurs in our communities that are being successful, giving back to our people, that should be something that should be celebrated. And it's really discouraging and disheartening seeing my Uncle Chris and my younger cousin, what they had to encounter in 2019, I think. And just seeing that, it's without even listening to them. So our own leadership not listening to our people. And I think we have to be really conscientious of who we are electing in those positions, because really, if you don't have that background, you're not going to operate in a sovereign, kind of way. You're going to operate under the federal, government. And they're using our own people against each other. And I just wanted to point that out, that we have to be really conscientious of that. And that's going to be the root of all the problems, is that we start acknowledging.
I hit the nail on the head. But I do have a quick response for you. Buy my book in a couple of months, and it'll have the answers for you. But yeah, our chiefs and councils do need to get the information, because they also have Aboriginal treaty rights, not as a chief and council, but as individuals. And somehow, sometime in the future, we gotta figure this out and fix it. It should be, yeah.
But are not chief and council servants of the Indian Act?
Yeah, they're servants of the Indian Act. They're only responsible is to the Minister of Indian Affairs. They're not responsible to the people. And, people don't know that, though. Yeah, okay, and it's gotta be fixed, but it's no use getting angry about it or going at each other. Hey, we got a problem here. Let's throw it out the table and melt it about a bit, and we'll get it fixed. Don't run the battery out.
I grew up with the zoomer all the way out here. I'll take him home. Just kidding. He said, don't run the battery out. I'm gonna talk into it. Anyway, in response to the, hey man, I'm from 6, right? All those guys are just sitting around like, what, man? There's one thing that dealing with band councils, right? It's not a total bad thing, right? What we need to do is we start working together and get them to push our mandates. And once they start doing that, then that makes a whole circle of unity that we need for our people. Whether they once they have the backing of the people, and we all start working together, that's when we can say, all right, Canada, we don't need you no more. We got this. We got our economy, we got our banks, we got our sustainability, we're all nation to nation once again. That's not just a pipe dream. That is us all across Turtle Island finally finding a way to band together and put, work together with these grievances. My thing is, and I've had this issue with, again, with Six Nations Police. They brought in a voting for the federal election, right? They set up polls on our territory, and we got wind of it. And we went there the next morning and we cut off the road so no voters could go in. And the police came there. But the police didn't come there until the big guy got there. Well, I was already there to greet him, right? So he gets there and we said, no. You know, you're already impounding enough federal action on our people. Yous can go vote somewhere else. I mean, because we do have voters on our community. In our community, it's about 80% traditional who don't vote. We have 20,000 eligible voters and about 1,500 vote in our community. So, and that at one time ago, it was councillors of 12 and one elected chief. Now they've taken it down to 9 with one chief, and 9 councillors who can now stay in there for 4 years. So this means that he's gonna stay in there until our 100th year. So right now, we're really being faced with municipalization. They say no, we say you're all the signs are geared towards it, right? So we do not wanna be on every federal framework, because they're gonna take our land, they're gonna take the title. They're gonna offer us money, sums of money. Six Nations has been offered $3 billion for 10 years to look after our community. And they'll give us everything we want. They'll help us with infrastructure. We can do our ceremonies. We can do whatever we want. We just can't sell the land. And we can also now go to the bank to get a loan. You never could do that, right? Because you couldn't use your house as collateral. So they're changing a lot of things very quietly. You think they weren't working during COVID? Come on. You know, our eyes have opened up, right? So, but whether you're working for a band council, whether you're a traditional chief, you know, it's time to remove the hats, remove the titles, start forming as a people, you know, and I'm gonna say it again, women are the stronghold of any community, of any household. You know, we need to start upholding that again and believing in I'm touched by that young lady's words, you know, like we need to start giving that voice back to our youth in our community. Especially like right now in our community, we're ravaged by drugs. We have a funeral maybe twice a week now. And it's mostly all our young. You know, we've been so colonized that they've taken away the discipline out of our homes and forced mothers to go to work. So when you put all those dynamics into our lives, and if we keep it there, you know, we're not gonna have any growth at all. You know, so those are a lot of hardcore lessons that we all need to seriously look at. And how do we help each other regardless if you're in a title position or not, you know? And we are all experts in our own communities because we're living it. There's nobody out there that can tell us that we don't know what we're talking about. We're smart. Remember, we've taken that white man's education. There's a lot of smart Omahoan people across Turtle Island, right? So let's put that smartness to use. Let's put our resources back together, you know, let's connect all across as far as we can go, as far as that language is there, right? And work on getting our language back. I'm trying to do that. I have a language camp at home. I've started it on my own. And I've called it Camp Otayoni because I'm a wolf. So once a week, well, with COVID, I had to stop, but I'm trying to revitalize the Cuba language, right? So on a homesteading basis, right? I don't want to go into a place like this. We all learn, or a classroom, you know, it all begins at home, right? So when they tried to take all this away from us with those residential schools, you know, one thing they never counted on, and that was the strength and endurance that we hold within us. And remember, we all have that spiritual claim. We come from the earth, we're going back to the earth. So we have that spiritual claim to anything that happens on our territories. You know, that universal law, remember, it supersedes any judgment from any courtroom. So if when push really comes down to shove, you stand up and you tell them that who you are. If you have a native name, use it. Use whatever name, language you can so that your ancestors will always be there to help you. As soon as they hear that language coming back, and I was so glad to hear the gentleman there, Jim, when he addressed, this room in his language. And, I'm hoping that I'll be able to do that. We do some. So really start looking at a lot of things. It's not just about cannabis, but remember cannabis is also used as warfare against us. Because that's why they created these government cannabis stores, right? Right now we're working on creating some kind of a stamp that will tell the outside world that our products are safe and pesticide free, no herbicides, no mold. Governments don't do that. They give you a certain level of things that you can use. They put in your cereal, right? You look at all those chemical names that they're putting in your processed food that you're buying every day. They're doing the same thing with marijuana. So when the outside world is going out there and buying cannabis, and people start developing all these lung issues from it because you're smoking it, so they're gonna blame it on us again. Well, like with it, so we don't need to get into all that discrimination, but that's certainly a part of what the governments just want us to do. So if you have a dispensary, follow the rules and regulations of the people, right? And we will succeed, and we gotta do it together. Whether, like I said, whether you're a band council, traditional, teacher or mother, whatever, if you're a member of your community and you wanna make that change, then, start stepping up and making those changes for everybody. Because you are all gonna benefit, or you are all gonna fall. And us too, us as Omaha people of this, start healing, stay sober, and that's another thing. We are becoming sober. We're not those drunk little Indians anymore. They can't fool us anymore, right? We're educated, we're sober, and, we gotta bring back the love. And once you got love, you got peace, we're good, right? There you go.
Okay, it's getting near that hour. Okay, maybe with that one, we'll call it an evening with the promise that at some point I'm gonna come back and I wanna teach your kids about Aboriginal treaty rights.